would have been 90. So I thought about 6 weeks ago it would be a really nice time of year to have this celebration of her life. It was very quickly organised, but I appreciate everyone coming. It's a pity that Rob and Anik and Tom and Sarah couldn't come, but next year when the whole family's together, we'll go down to Wooleye and spend Mum's ashes down there. Why a gin and tonic for Jay? Well, whenever I used to drop into Mum, she'd say, "Hi Phoebe, do you want a cup of tea and a piece of toast, or gin and tonic?" I can hardly give you a cup of tea and a piece of toast, so gin and tonic is the flavour of the day. Firstly, I'd like to thank certain people that are here. Fee Churnside, thank you so much, darling. She calls me darling all the time. I'm out from Melbourne. Fee's mum's cousin. So Fee's mother and mum's father were siblings. Thanks, Fee. She's really enjoyed the last few years of talking to you. Secondly, Annabelle and Jempi and partners and Kenneth, thanks so much for being part of Mum's life these last few years especially. Jempi's mum was Mum's sister, only word. And Mum's loved the conversations and visits and laughs she's had with you all. I'd also like to mention Louise Faulkner, who's Mum's goddaughter, and her mother was my godmother. Louise, Mum's on the wall. Yeah, you can pick the one she is. So Mum and Rosie grew up together and were besties way back when. Louise and I had a coffee the other day and told a few stories, a few home truths about our mothers. So thanks very much for coming. Wooleye people, Bruce and Georgie and Phil and Helen, where are you? Thanks so much for the effort for coming up. Mum had 17 wonderful years at Wooleye, and she really loves the time there. She went and met a whole new group of people and just had the best time of her life there, so thanks so much. David Glasgow, thanks for coming up from Sydney. David's Robert's oldest, for those of you that don't know David, and Mum would be so pleased that you're enjoying it, Australia. I'd like to tell a couple of gin and tonic stories. The first story goes way back to when I was about 12, and we were living in Stanley Terrace in Brisbane. Rob would have been 17, Jamie 16. It was a Saturday, and Jamie was out playing cricket. Dad was either shooting or playing golf. Robert was out with either Nikki Kennedy or Meg Simpson at their place. And I was in the bedroom and Mum and I were alone. And all of a sudden I hear this, "Phoebe, get out here. What the hell's this?" I'm thinking, oh, well, this doesn't sound good. So I run outside and there's Mum with this Hessian sack. You better close your ears for this. With a few marijuana crops on it. Unbeknown to me, my big brother, I think it was him, had been growing marijuana and was drying it on the roof of our beautiful octagonal dining room. And one very windy day, it fell off. So Mum starts to do a no-no and she says, "We've got to get rid of this, we've got to get rid of this before your father gets home." She's dragging it inside, up the steps, down the hallway into the kitchen, and I think, uh-oh, I better ring Robert. So I go and ring, "Fine, Robert." It's Robert. "Fine, Robert. Quick, get home. Mum's found your marijuana plants." So within 10 minutes, Rob strides down the hallway, says, "What's up, Mum?" "Robert, what the hell's this?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Looks like some marijuana plants." Well, we've got to get rid of it before Dad comes home. We're going to burn it." "For Christ's sake," says Robert. "We can't burn it. The whole of Taringa will be stoned." So Robert's quick at thinking on his feet, and he walks over to the alcohol cabinet, takes out 2 bottles of Mum's gin, strides across to the sink and says, if you burn my marijuana, I'm pouring your gin out." So the argument gets worse and I'm slowly backing out into my bedroom until the heat dies down. When it's all quiet, I go back and I sneak it, I look into the cupboard. Sure enough, Mum's gin was still there and full. So I sneak downstairs to Robert's room. What happened? Oh, she threw it down the backyard where it was grown. But in stealth of night, he took it out over to Graham Hattrick's place.
There's another story. The big boss man.
So
Graham's probably still got it.
well, this just goes to show two things. Robert was always very good at making the best form of defence attack. The most important one was that Mum loved her gin and tonic. Okay, the second story, and I'll be quick. So fast forward 30 years, and I'm working in Budrum in the physio clinic. I get this phone call. Dad had recently died, and Mum says, I think I'll do a road trip. Well, Mum was 70 at this stage, and I'm thinking, whose 70-year-old mother does a road trip? Yeah, fair enough, off she toddles. 3 days later, I hadn't heard from her, so I thought I'd better ring. Where are you, Mum? I'm at Yamba. How is it? It's all right, but a bit busy, so all good. 2 days after that, I ring again. Where are you, Mum? I'm at Evans Head. How's that? It's a bit sharky. Then a week later, I hadn't heard, so I ring her up. Oh, Mum, where are you? I found Wooli. Where's Wooli? I said. I didn't know where it was. But she went there because the boys had been to Mini Waters. Anyway, Mum fell in love with Wooli. She'd rented a place, eventually bought a place there, and ended up spending 17 beautiful years living there. About a month after she moved in, a very good friend of hers, Von Paul from Budrum, thought she'd go down and visit. So Von drives 6 hours down, and Mum takes her to the Wooli pub. As far as I knew, my mother had never been to any pub except the Stratty pub. Anyway, they go to the Wooli pub, then they go back home and have a bottle of gin and tonic together, sitting on the deck. Von rang me after Mum died and said, Phoebe, I've got to tell you this. No one else knows, but now we all know. That afternoon, Jay and I looked at each other and said, let's go down and swim naked. Is this true?
Yes, it's true.
It's true. We found the beach. Oh, so you knew about it.
Everyone did.
There's a photo of the surfer.
Anyway, Mum always used to say, Phoebe, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But I say, if life gives you lemons, have a gin and tonic as well. Make life a bit sweeter. Thank you.
Well,
Okay, hi, so hi everyone, I'm Dave, for those of you who don't know me, the Stoner's son. Grandson to Jay. I do realise how much she loved gin and tonics, but I always appreciated how whenever I turn up at Wooli, she'd have a nice cold beer and a prawn sandwich ready. So I'm actually reading on behalf of Dad, and of course, you know, he would have loved to have been here, along with my mum, Tom, and Sarah. But they're all in the UK, coming out of lockdown and quarantine, so I'll be reading Dad's words. Firstly, a huge thanks to Phoebes for organising these drinks. It's something that she wanted to do, and really the only type of event Jay would have endorsed. Mum hated funerals and public displays of any emotion, even accusing me and Phoebe of hosting a cocktail party when Jamie died. I'm very sad that I couldn't have been there with you, so well done to Phoebe for carrying the load. Secondly, thanks to all of you for coming. Some of you have come a long way, and everyone's presence means a lot to me and Phoebe. Mum would have been somewhat embarrassed at all the fuss, but really pleased to share a drink and some memories with you. Phoebe and I did most of the journey with Mum, but you all touched her life at different times and in different circumstances. You have perhaps very different memories of her from ours, as well as a fantastic collective appreciation of her many qualities and eccentricities. We all knew Jay, so I really don't feel that I have to do the traditional thing of recounting her life. Hopefully Phoebe and David P mastered the technology, and there's lots of photos of Mum, so it's true, for us to share. Mum was a complex, gorgeous, generous person. I know we all think of we are unique, but Mum was really different. Unafraid of change, unafraid of challenges, Mum remade her life to suit her circumstances. Brisbane, Budgeon, Mooloolaba, and finally Wilai. Determined and courageous. Did I mention gorgeous? Of course, we also have to remember some of the things only Mum could have done. I'm just going to throw out a few examples and call on people to tell their stories later on. Phoebe, just how did the acupuncture needles end up in the green salad at Bob and Dave's lunch?
It's not about Jay.
And just how did Mum's new car end up off the ground, balanced on an old tree stump at Wilai? I'm not sure I ever thanked Bruce Bird for his exemplary and liberating chainsaw work, so thanks Bruce. And how did Jay unintentionally steal a car from outside the Mooloolaba supermarket? She borrowed Bob's banana Tirana, remember them, to go shopping. Somehow his key worked in some other random yellow car on the car park. And she happily tootled home. Coming upstairs, she did think it was a bit strange there was a child's seat in the back seat. She thought she'd better phone the supermarket to see if there was a panic-stricken mother and child frantically searching the car park. Dad, of course, learned to live with her foibles, but he was a bit pissed off when he found her serving up his Fraser Island baked prawn to a guest at another lunch party. He should have known better than to be late. Guests later described the prawns as flavoursome. Happily, no medics were required. Dad always brought the good bait. Mum came from money and a certain social standing, darling. She quickly learned that life with Dad really didn't follow the niceties. She loathed fishing. Dad took her fishing to Wanton for their honeymoon. She loved She loved Noosa and the more refined social scene, and detested the deprivations of Stradbroke at the time. Every year, when we got back from the annual 3-week Chrissy holiday at Straddy, Dad would initiate a vote to decide the destination for next year. 4 votes to 1 every year. Probably the only time he was ever truly democratic. Mum and Dad were invited to a reception at Government House, right up Mum Street. Finally a chance to show off her background. She realised that Bob had a good black suit, but only brown shoes. Get over. He was dispatched to buy himself some black shoes to go with his best suit. He returned with new fishing waders.
He did that for my wedding too.
Mum had to try and dye his brown shoes black, and was in total embarrassment when she offered her blackened hand to the governor and his wife at the reception. I think Dad gave him a wink. But for us kids, Mum was truly awesome. She was always there for us, supportive, encouraging, strict, generous, honest, loving. When I showed these words to Tom in London, he suggested I include some anecdotes illustrating Mum's essential goodness. I was worried when no single instance came readily to mind until I realised that her selflessness, her kindness and her love were truly constant throughout my life. She was the original Tiger Mum, fiercely protecting her brood, forever ensuring our well-being. She leaves a huge hole in my life. But we aren't here to mourn. Oh yeah, we are. It is the nature of life that she is gone forever, and she will be missed by us all. Mum wouldn't want too much sadness. She would want a gin tonic. Please raise a glass and drink a deep toast to Jay and her life well lived. Jay.
Very good. Very good. Well done, Robert. Well done, Robert.
Richard, you got your speech.